Hello, I'm Drew Pickens, and in this video, we are going to discuss the topic of preparing for negotiation by understanding the ranges within which a negotiation can take place. And we're going to use this whiteboard to illustrate our point today. We're going to look at this from both the seller and the buyer's perspective, and starting with the seller, you'll see they have a range they can sell their product, anywhere from giving it away to full retail price. And most sellers understand that if they can't get full retail, there's probably going to have to be some discount that takes place in here. And so they have a modest discount in mind that they might offer their product at. Conversely, the buyer knows they would love to get it for free, but they're not going to be able to. That's not going to be able to happen. So they're probably going to have to pay something for it. So they've got a low price in their mind, and this is what you would call a low ball offer. This is something below what they're probably going to have to pay for it, but they might start there. They might start at some very low offer. With all of this in mind, the seller then, understanding they might have to discount, has a range of discounts that they can use at their disposal, but there's a maximum range that they will discount, and we're going to call that the seller's walkaway point. This is the point at which the seller will not discount any further. They should always have a walkaway point in their mind. The same thing with the buyer. The buyer has an entry point they might be at, but there's a point at which the buyer won't go any higher, and that's the buyer's walkaway point. So with all of these points in mind, where then can our negotiation take place? Our negotiation will take place somewhere in this range between the two walkaway points. This is where a successful negotiation can take place, because anything outside of this shaded area lies outside one of the two parties' walkaway zones. Up here is too expensive for the buyer. Down here is too big of a discount for the seller. So a negotiation will conclude successfully somewhere in that zone. With all of this understood, the seller then has to ask himself something. Where will I actually begin my negotiation? And I'm going to lay this point out for you to consider first. A negotiation can only take place successfully if the buyer actually wants to purchase this product from the seller, and the seller actually wants to make this sale to the buyer. So understanding that the buyer actually wants to purchase from the seller, where then should the seller begin the negotiation process? Here's the rule of thumb. The seller should start their process somewhere at or slightly above the buyer's walkaway point. Because what's going to happen as soon as they come up with an opening offer, the seller is then going to be pulled towards their walkaway point by the buyer. With all the force the buyer can exert, they're going to pull the seller towards the seller's walkaway point. If the seller starts too close to their walkaway point, what's going to happen? They're going to get pulled to their walkaway point really fast. And then it looks to the buyer like the seller was one of these sellers that drives a hard bargain and didn't give in much, where in fact the seller did give up a lot. They just gave it up before the negotiation ever began. So you want to start as close to the buyer's walkaway point and slightly above if you possibly can. A good buying negotiator will do exactly the same thing. They will start just below or as close to the seller's walkaway point as they can, and then be pulled towards their walkaway point. If the buyer starts too close to their own walkaway point, same thing happens. They get pulled to their walkaway point really fast, and it looks like they drove the hard bargain, didn't give anything up, when in fact they did give up lots down here below. So what is the main moral of this story? Is that by knowing your own walkaway first, understanding what is your walkaway point, have that well established in your mind, and then through all the experience and research you can do as a good salesperson, understand where your buyer's walkaway point might be and set your starting point slightly above that. And a good negotiator on the other side is going to do the same thing, and that means you will end up somewhere in the middle here, which is a nice, fair concluding price for both the seller and the buyer that gives each lots of range of motion. Neither one leaves really anything of consequence on the table. The seller still has profit to be made or anything else that they might trade. And you both maintain and secure the relationship between the two because you are moving in your negotiation range here. Do not start very close to your walkaway point. That is a recipe for a failed or unsuccessful negotiation. So understand your walkaway point, understand your counterpart's walkaway point, and plan your range and starting point accordingly.